Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week we are going to finish the Samantha cloak and also hopefully make the hat for this outfit. So as you can tell, or maybe you can't tell, but this cloak is nearly done. I was really hoping I was going to finish it last week. It just did not happen with Tech Week and everything. So we have Tech Week Part 2 plus opening this week, but I'm kind of hopeful that I can maybe finish it today. I don't want to jinx myself, but we're really close. So the next step is going to be attaching the collar capelet bit / attaching the actual collar. Now I have not drafted up nor cut out nor nothing the actual collar. The capelet on the other hand is ready to get attached. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to kind of match up the collar neckline here and sew them together like top stitch so that the collar, the capelet is on top of here. Once those are attached, then I can figure out the drafting up of the collar. I don't know if it's a straight band. I feel like most collars have a little bit of a curve to them. So I think I just have to figure out the length it needs to be and get that curve and give it a go. So hopefully I will do it right. Let's go ahead and get things attached. So just FYI, in matching this up, the neckline of the capelet actually wound up being a fair bit smaller than the neckline of the cloak portion. So I've kind of slipped it down just a little bit, like a 1/4 inch or so lower to make sure that they can match up. So I'm going to lose about that 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch of length on the capelet part. All right, the collar is on the cloak. I'm a little worried that like this collar side in particular wants to be very pointy. I don't know why, and I don't know how to fix it. I mean, I know why. It's because of the braid. It's just wanting to be very stiff. Like it's also weirdly stiff in the back, I feel like, where it's kind of fanning out. I'm hoping maybe some pressing can get that to lay a little flatter, but it's definitely the braid that is causing that squidginess, but it's on. So now I just need the actual like collar band. And so let's go try and pattern that up. So this is my collar mock-up / what I'm hoping to be my actual collar. I've marked my center right here. I think honestly it's going to be a little bit long, but I would rather start with it too long and I can always trim down the ends. I'm going to match the centers and then like match the rest as it pins out. This is 3 inches wide, but after the seam allowance, it'll wind up being a 2-inch wide collar. I'm hoping that that is not going to be too tall. I figure like it's outerwear, it should be a little tall so it's toasty. And then yeah, this is cotton twill. So I've decided to attempt to line it in cotton twill so that it might not be itchy. Also, I'm a little scared because I think this might be all of the wool that I have left. This wool is maybe the width of this pattern. It might be a little bit shorter. I might have to press it and squidge it out. We'll see. And yeah, and then of course I did say that this pattern may be a little bit long, so I'm hoping that's the case because I don't have much wool left at all. Oh my goodness. I will make this work, but hopefully this works. That's why I've done this just as a mock-up first and not risk cutting the wool because I don't have room to spare. So let's get this attached and see what happens. I'm actually going to fold down this outer edge though so that I can pretend there's seam allowance, like that I've taken it out. That way I can hopefully see a little bit better. So it's kind of hard to tell because I definitely do have a lot of excess that will need to be removed as far as the length of the collar goes, but I think that otherwise like the shape is good. I mean, again, this is being all wonky where I've just like folded down the seam allowance and the excess, but look, like the shape is kind of, you know, sticking into my neck. It seems like it's the right length. I do wonder if like closing the cloak right here, right at the top, is gonna feel a little bit on the tight side. So I might have to see how that goes, but I don't really want to like cut open the neck any additionally. And I think once the seam allowance is removed, I think that that will be better. So I think this is the winner. Like the slope of the collar works. I think the length or the height, I guess, of the collar works. The length will need to get that little bit of excess removed. So it's probably about like 3/8 inch extra that I had on either side. That'll just get cut down. And this will be a nice curve at the top instead of this wonky like I'm folding this out of the way thing that is what's going on right now. So yeah, I guess I can just go ahead and cut that excess off, remove the mock-up lining thing from the capelet, and then cut it in the plaid little bit that I have left. And then that will just go right sides together. I'm not gonna put any interfacing or anything like that in this because the wool is really stiff. I don't think I should have a problem with it. And yeah, I'm just gonna do them right sides together and then clip the curves and turn them out, and then I will put like the right sides together of the wool when I'm attaching it, and then this will get stitched down by hand on the inside after I clip the curve of that seam. So those are all the steps of the collar. I might show you some of that as I go. I don't know how much of that makes sense versus not with me just saying it. So yeah, let's do a collar. So I'm feeling a little torn because if you look closely at her collar, you can see that it's actually on the bias, and I don't know whether to do that with mine. I don't really feel like I've ever done that with a collar before, and the thing is, like, this does just fit widthwise on this fabric, but like if I turn it to the bias, it's not going to be even, like it's not going to be true bias, I guess is what I mean. Like true bias would probably be something like that. And obviously there's a little issue with that. And since this is the last scrap, I mean, I can go through my trash can here on the floor to see if I have any bias strips, which it's possible I may have because I generally only keep out the larger pieces like this. Because, you know, this is a large piece. So I might have something on the bias, but I don't know. I've just never done a collar on the bias before, so I don't know if it matters or not. So I think I'll have a dig through my trash, see what I find, and otherwise I might just do it on the straight grain, because, like, if I do it on the bias here, we're going to come up with different colors on either side, different parts of the plaid. Like, it's not going to look like it matches. No bias pieces to be had. What I did find though were a couple of selvage pieces. This is the selvage right here, and I'm actually kind of tempted to just cut it on here, like the length of the grain. I don't know if that would be a bad thing, and honestly I'm not sure. I guess this one is a cross grain because I can see that it's opposite from this, but if I do this and screw it up, I still have this that I can cut into. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking I'm going to use this. Also, well, I don't know. I mean, the bias does look really pretty, but I don't have the fabric left to like get that true bias. And I don't know that it would look pretty without the true bias. So let's try the selvage piece instead. So since I actually had two of those selvage pieces, I decided with one I would try to do like as much of the diagonal with the selvage that I had, which is this as the result. And obviously it is not much of a bias, but I feel like it's enough to make it look slightly on purpose. So we're gonna give that a try and see how that goes. So the exterior portion of the collar is now all sewn in, and the interior has to be like pressed down and stitched by hand, but I'm kind of wondering if I want to curve this out more because I just feel like it is too tall for me up here. So I'm kind of thinking if I curve that down like this, give it a really gentle slope, it might not like poke me in the underside of my neck. So yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do before I stitch that bit down, just to fix that little issue there. Oh my gosh, that is so much better. I don't know how it was taller before, but that's so much better. So everything is pinned down, ready to be hand sewn now, but I am gonna go to Joann's and look for closure options. Debating about wearing the cloak, except that I don't have a way to close it to wear it to Joann's. I might still bring it anyway, and we'll see what I find. So I went off to Joann's and I got all of the rest of the cloak clasps that I need, as well as the snaps for the spats. So I am gonna go do hand sewing and watch Gilded Age for the rest of the evening. I will be putting on the 5 clasps, the ribbon tie right at the neck, and stitching down the inside of the collar, and putting the snaps on the spats, and then the spats and the cloak are done, and I will move on to the hat tomorrow. I finished the cloak last night. I put on all of the closures. I have these ribbon ties here. I decided to go with like a 1/2 inch wide ribbon to replace what was the rat tail on Samantha's cloak. I have to admit, like, I feel like this is a little tight. Like it's still pulling a bit at the neckline, and I'm just not good with things that are that tight. So I may wind up just like maybe squidging the clasp either down a little bit or out a little bit. I'm not sure. And I'm also torn on, I went for 5, but I kind of wonder if I should have done 6. That way it would have closed like all the way down the body. Maybe. I also finished the snap on the gaiters, so that now has the little strap that goes underneath the foot, and that can just open and close like that. So all of the wool plaid stuff for this project, it's finished, and I have plenty of the fur, so I'm gonna see what I can do about like a hat pattern, because I already have this muff that I made years and years ago, and I think it'll work just fine. It's a little on the small side, but I think it'll work just fine for Samantha's muff. And so this is the same fabric, so hopefully I can make a hat to match, and it'll just be a little tam. So don't know if I'll be able to get started on that today because I've got tech rehearsal tonight. So we'll see how much time I actually have. But yeah, I'm really excited with how this is going. I do still feel like it is sticking up just a little bit, but I like these clasps. I think that they're very pretty, and this was the one where I had 2 in my stash already, so I only wound up buying 3, though again I may buy a 4th, because that way if I buy a 4th I can close it all the way down to my waist. I don't know. When I looked at it at home before I went to go get the clasps, I determined that I needed 5 total because I was looking at them spaced 4 inches apart. But I was a little bit worried about that 4-inch spacing because it would have meant that there wasn't really a clasp like right here at the apex of the bust, and it would have just like kind of skipped that. So then as I started putting them on, I realized, well, if I followed the pattern of the plaid and just did it in like the lower part of the green each time, that would put them, to be honest, I haven't measured them, but I think like 3.5 inches apart. And of course that would mean that the bottom one would be higher, but I like the spacing, and it was also really easy to match them up across from each other. I didn't need to measure or anything because I knew that the plaid matched. So I could just put them on the part of the plaid and they would match. So that was great. So that's where we are. We've got our lovely cloak. I am really sweating in here. It is way too warm, especially over this brand new sweater that I just got at Target yesterday. I was out running errands and I got this sweater sized medium. Like, what even is this? For $14. So I'm very excited with it. But oh my gosh, this cloak is warm. Oh, whew. Anyway, I will be back later when I start working on the hat. Okay, so let's talk about Samantha's hat. This is her little furry hat. I have to admit, part of me is tempted to make a new muff that's larger and make it out of the fluffier fur that I had bought for Barbie. And yeah, I am tempted to do that. And then also make the hat out of this, because the thing is that my fur has like stripes in it. I don't know how well that shows up on screen, but it's really low pile and it's got little stripes in it. And I just don't feel like that's gonna look good in the hat because it's round. So I'm tempted. I think I have enough Barbie fur, so we'll see. Anyway, the hat, there is a pattern for the hat in the American Girl doll patterns, but I don't think I need to use it. Basically, when you unstretch the elastic all over the way like this should be able to like fit fully around her head. Though this one, the elastic's pretty tight on it considering how old this is. So yeah, that's the goal. I think I'm gonna start with figuring out what that is, like circumference wise, what that band size would be, because it's made out of 2 pieces plus the little puff. And this is just a horizontal band around, and then this is a flat round up on top. So once I figure out the circumference that I need for the band, then I can add seam allowance, obviously, and then I can figure out what that circumference would be of the top plus seam allowance on that. I think that this math will work out. So yeah, that's how that will work. And then the same pieces get cut out in like a satin type material for the inside, and then it's just the fur for the outside, and then the little puff ball is like a small round piece of fabric that gets a little bit of fiberfill stuffing put into it. This one is like hard as a rock, so I guess it gets really overstuffed, and then that just all gets gathered together at the bottom and turned into a little puff ball. So those, I mean, should be really simple. The circles basically will get joined right sides together and have a little gap left, and then turned right side out, and then another stitch line gets stitched around, which of course you cannot see in the fur at all. They did a really good job on this, honestly. But another stitch line gets put through, and then elastic gets put into that. I should have elastic, I hope. I didn't check, of course, because why would I? So I'm not gonna make a mock-up on this, famous last words, and we're just gonna see about making this little hat. So I think the length on the band should be about like 29 or so inches. This is at 29 right here, and it seems like, you know, this fits over my head pretty well. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with 29 for 30 total, including seam allowance, and then figure out what the circumference, what a 29-inch circumference equals diameter wise, and cut out a circle with that diameter for the top. So I did the math, and for a 29-inch circumference, I need to have a 9.25 inch diameter, which plus seam allowance would equal 10.25 inches, which happens to be this plate. I literally just went around my kitchen, measured around things, plates, pans, bowls, etc., until I found one that was the right dimensions. So this is the right dimensions. This is what I'm going to use to cut out the circle part of the fabrics, and let's see how that goes. So I'm a bit concerned that this seems small. I don't know, maybe it's not, maybe I just have a really weird sense of scale because I wear a lot of big hats, but I just feel like this seems small. Like once I take the seam allowance out of here, it's going to be obviously even an inch smaller. I don't know. I might just go ahead and kind of like mock it up with this fur because I have so much of it. This is the Barbie fur, by the way, not the fur that the muff is made out of, because I do feel like this longer length, I don't know, it seems a bit appropriate, and if I hate it in the mock-up, then I can just cut it out of the other one. And if it's the wrong size in the mock-up, I can just cut more because I have a ton of this. So yeah, I think I will make a band and see what this looks like with the band, not mock up the lining or anything, and just see scale-wise if we're doing the right thing. The one thing that I don't like about this fur is that it has a direction. Like, can you see that? It goes this way, and I just feel like I want it going every which way. I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna mock up the band, but I think I'm gonna do that tomorrow. So I have my hat mock-up. It is not right. Let me show you how not right this hat mock-up is. Yeah. So the thing that's going on here is that the circle part of the top, the flat part, is too small by a fair amount. Like, I need to make it at least an inch larger total diameter across, maybe even more than that. The band is too wide for this size of circle. Like, that's why you can see, I don't know how well you can see this, but you can see that the seam is actually up here instead of down here, because this band is okay, but it would need to go for a larger circle, if that makes any sense. So I think that the band I'm going to recut longer, because obviously if I make a larger circle, then the length of the band has to be longer. And then I am going to recut the top, obviously, and it's wider, try it again. But I mean, overall, like, it's a thing. It's not right. I also don't think I like this fur. This is the Barbie fur. I think I'm gonna try it in the striped fur. I have plenty of each, so I can make, you know, one in that fur. If I don't like that one, I can go back to this fur. It's okay. But yeah, luckily it's a pretty quick thing to make. So I am going to cut out mock-up slash maybe final number 2 and see how that one goes. Also though, I do want to point out that I am not good at wearing berets or tams or this type of hat at all. And luckily I'm not the only one, because Samantha is also not good at wearing hats like this. You can see that hers is a lot larger on her head, and so that's what I want to change about mine, to make mine larger on my head. But yeah, she looks weird, I look weird, so at least I'm in good company. This one is going to be slightly more difficult to draw out the circle of, because this time the thing that I have that is 11¼ inches across is a colander, and not just a colander, but a plastic colander. So A, it has a little bit of squish. I think this one is doing a pretty good job of keeping round, but B, it also has handles, so I'm gonna have to kind of like turn it around as I go. The next closest thing though that I had was a plastic like chip bowl, and that was very much squished out of its circular shape. So now that I'm thinking about it though, my whole room is lined with hat boxes, and we may be approaching the potential diameter of a hat box. So I might see if one of those wants to help me out instead of this colander. So this still seems totally wrong. If anything, it may feel more wrong than it did before. I don't know what is going on, but again, like the seam is up. I do feel like the size on my head, like the width is better, but I feel like the density of the other one looked better, if that makes sense. I think that was a fur length thing, which I am breathing in the fur. Oh my God, like it's just sticking to everything. I'm trying to be really good when I cut it, and oh God, because when you work with fake fur, or when you work with any fur, you are supposed to cut from the back so that you try not to cut any of the actual fur fibers. You're just cutting like the back. Yeah, that doesn't work. There's still fur fibers that get in the ear, so probably should be wearing one of my masks, but I'm not. Anyway, this is what we have, but again, yeah, the seam's just in the wrong place. I think what I'm gonna do, if I can get all this fur out of my face, is I am gonna take the elastic out, because all I've done in here is like the strip is attached to the circle. So it's just kind of like eased in around the circle. And then this I've just folded in a 1/2 inch and threaded elastic through with a bodkin. Oh my God, this fur. And I think that I need to thread it in, like I need to fold down a lot more than a 1/2 inch, because I think this is still just really wide. I don't know. I honestly do not know. I mean, her hat does stick up a bit too, because the thing is, if I go much narrower than this, I feel like it's gonna be the same width as her hat. Maybe it's just that I don't wear these hats well. Maybe that's what we're facing here. I'm just not good at wearing hats like this. You don't know how to wear them right. I never have. And so maybe that is the real problem, and it's not the way I'm making it. It's just that these hats don't work well on my head. That could be an option. In any case, it is time for me to get ready for rehearsal. So this is going to be all I'm going to do right now, because we have our final dress rehearsal. And yeah, I just don't know about this hat. So I just did a little video call with my mom to see what she thought of it, and she said that it's a weird style of hat, not that I have done it weirdly. So I think we're just gonna run with it, and I'm gonna cut out these same pieces in, I have this poly, I think it's taffeta, poly taffeta, and I'll just use that for the lining, which also should help to give a little bit more body, because I feel like it keeps sinking down right here. So I mean, I haven't pressed any seams or anything, but I'm gonna cut out these same pieces in here, which means I'm gonna undo this little 1/2 inch fold here, because this will actually be the seam allowance with the taffeta. And so I will unfortunately have to pick this out of the fur, which is gonna be annoying, but yeah, I'm gonna cut out the same pieces in the taffeta and then put them together the same way that I did this, and then put them together with this. And I also have to make the little puff ball, but I am gonna go with this lower pile fur too, because I feel like you can't even really see the stripes. I mean, you can when you look at it head on, but not many people are gonna be above my head. So I feel like this pile does better. It's not as good as Samantha's. It's a shorter pile than Samantha's, but it's definitely better than the Barbie fur one. And yeah, I'm going to finish putting this together, but again, that is going to be tomorrow since I'm heading off to rehearsal. But I'm glad that I figured it out, and tomorrow I will hopefully have a finished hat for you. So it has been a few days since I last was working on the Samantha hat. That was Wednesday. Today is Saturday. Of course it is. In the meantime, we had our final dress rehearsal for Into the Woods. We opened Into the Woods. We then had a second show of Into the Woods yesterday. And yesterday I was cleaning and running errands and everything because I've got people coming over this weekend. So I am back to the hat now, finally working on the lining. The lining is just poly taffeta, because that's what I had in my stash. So it's just, you know, from the Cost collection at Joann's. And I wanted to show you what it looks like when you are connecting a flat straight band to a circle. In case you haven't done that before, it's kind of annoying, but basically it looks like this. So what happens is first you put the ends of the bands together. So you just sew those right sides together and press that. And then what I did was the poly taffeta is a lot less malleable than the fur. The fur has some stretch because it's actually a knit fabric is how fur is made. It's a knit. So this is not, doesn't have the stretch. So this one, I wanted to make sure that I was really marking my at least quarters to try to make sure that I was putting this together evenly, even though it's a lining and no one's gonna see it. So I went and I divided the band into quarters, marked a little mark with my friction pen, and then I also did the same thing to the circle part, the top part. And so you can see some of these marks right there, right there, right there. And then once those were pinned together, matching the marks, I went and kind of like squidged the pinning in, because what you have to keep in mind when you're doing something like this is that it's a 1/2 inch down from the edge that is where it's supposed to meet. So the actual like edge is probably not gonna look great. I mean, you can see all those wiggles right there, right? But that is because it's a circle. So the farther out it gets, the bigger it is. So a 1/2 inch in from there, it does meet the band. So that works. So now that I have that all pinned in place, I'm just going to sew that together. This is all right sides together, by the way. Sew that together, and then I do have to unpick the elastic channel that I had put in when the hat was kind of mock-up stage. And I want to double check with Samantha's hat if her pom-pom was put on before the lining was attached or after. Because if it's after, then I should probably see some stitches that hold up the top of the lining, and I'm thinking that that might be preferable anyway, because then it will keep the top of the lining from kind of like collapsing down to the head. But I do still have to make the pom-pom. I have not yet cut that out or even mocked it up or anything. I mean, I'm not gonna mock it up. It's a pom-pom. Like, I'm just gonna cut a circle and fill it with fiberfill and hope that that's the right size. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's where we are with the hat. I am hoping to finish this in the next little bit so that I can show you the entire completed ensemble before I go to the theater tonight. All right, so next steps on the hat. I have the lining right in here. This is the outer. Both of them are right sides together right now, so in other words, it looks inside out, and it's pinned all the way along the outside. I am going to sew all the way along the outside, except for about like probably this big, 2.5 inches, because that is the gap that I will use to turn the right side out, basically. You know, you got to turn the right side out. And then once that is done, I don't know really if I can press this very well. Normally I would press that seam, but this is fake fur. I don't know if it's going to press. So if I can press it, I'll press it. If not, I'm just going to kind of try to squidge it to the edge. And then I'm going to run another stitch line about a 1/2 inch up from that, and that will be the channel for the elastic. And then I will be able to thread the elastic through that gap in that I left, the 2.5 inch gap, and then I'll close that gap up by hand. At the same time that I'm doing that, I have also cut out a little circle here for the pom-pom. I don't know if this is going to be the right size, but this is what we are starting with. This is called How to Train Your Dragon Bowl Sized, and I will be running a gathering stitch along the outsides and pulling that gathering stitch up. Probably I'll run maybe 2 of them. I'll pull them up as tightly as I can. More fake fur is going in the air. I'll pull them up as tightly as I can after I stuff the center with fiberfill. So that will basically give this sort of thing, cinching it all the way up, and will leave me little pom-pom right there. And then once those are tied up, it'll be like this. I'll probably thread some stitches around and or through them to really make it nice and tight, and then that will get attached to the top of that like that. So if this is the right size, if not, then of course I'll be redoing it. So we're gonna give that a try and put those layers together on the hat, and that's it. So let's hope this goes well. The hat layers are all turned in together, and I've done the elastic channel. I haven't cut the elastic yet and closed up the channel yet. I was just trying to see the fit, but I think that this is the right fit. And then with the pom-pom, I think it'll really balance out a little bit more. I hope that pom-pom is going to be big enough. So I'm going to stitch the elastic in place like to itself and then close up that channel and then see about that pom-pom. I think that that is going to work. Size-wise, I think that does a good balance. It might be like the tiniest bit on the small size, but if I decide it is too small later, I could always make another one. But I think that's gonna anchor things nicely, putting it right there. So I'm gonna sew that on, and that will mean that everything is done. The Samantha winter wear outfit. I am super pleased with how this came out. I really do think that I did Samantha justice. I feel like we are twinning quite well. I even went with wearing my new Ishakti dress, which I feel like kind of has a similar-ish pattern to hers. Maybe I'll make hers someday. I don't know. It's not in my near plans. Have to at least say that. But I really did have fun cosplaying Samantha Parkington. So there will be more American Girl content coming up this year. I'm definitely going to be doing Felicity's Christmas dress, and I might do Addie's springtime birthday dress too, because I just absolutely love that dress. So do make sure that you check back for more American Girl content, and of course more sewing content of all sorts. If you did like this video though, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon, Julie, and Mirage. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!